Hi everybody, welcome to Jin's Wall Street News. The U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis reported Thursday that real gross domestic product increased at an annual rate of 3.1% in the third quarter 2024, revised up from 2.8% in the second estimate. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, the number of Americans claiming unemployment benefits decreased from 242,000 to 220,000 in the week ending December 14th. According to the National Association of Realtors, existing home sales rose 4.8% in November from a month ago. 10-year Treasury yield rises to 4.56% as investors are waiting for PCE data scheduled to be released at 8:30 a.m. Friday. For the U.S. stocks, S&P 500 fell 0.09%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average added 0.04%, snapping its 10-day losing streak. Micron Technology President and CEO Sanjay Mehrotra said during the earnings call on Wednesday, quote, "In 2028, we expect the HBM TAM to grow 4 times from the $16 billion level in 2024 and to exceed $100 billion by 2030, unquote. According to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, real gross domestic product increased at an annual rate of 3.1% in the third quarter 2024, revised up from 2.8% in the second estimate. The BEA said, quote, "The increases in real GDP primarily reflected increases in consumer spending, exports, non-residential fixed investment, and federal government spending." According to the U.S. Department of Labor, the number of Americans claiming unemployment benefits decreased from 242,000 to 220,000 in the week ending December 14th. The number of Americans receiving benefits after an initial week of 8 also fell from 1,879,000 to 1,874,000 in the week ending December 7th. The number of the initial jobless claims peaked at 260,000 in October, then it dropped to 213,000 in November. But it rebounded to 242,000 in the week ending December 7th, and then fortunately it fell to 220,000 last week. It's a good news. The number of the continuing jobless claims topped 1.91 million in the week ending November 9th. Then it has gradually declined to 1.87 million in the week ending December 7th. According to the National Association of Realtors, existing home sales increased 4.8% in November to a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 4.15 million, up 6.1% over the last 12 months. The National Association of Realtors Chief Economist Lawrence Yun said, quote, "Home sales momentum is building. More buyers have entered the market as the economy continues to add jobs, housing inventory grows compared to a year ago, and consumers get used to a new normal of mortgage rates between 6% and 7%, unquote. The median existing home sales price fell from $407,200 in October to $406,100 in November, but up 4.7% from the previous year. 10-year Treasury yield moved up and down around 4.4% until the summary of economic projections was released on Wednesday, despite strong S&P Global PMI in December and strong retail sales in November. Then it jumped as the summary of economic projections signaled fewer rate cuts in the next year than in September, and it moved up further as the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell spoke at the press conference. I'm gonna put the Fed Chairman's remarks to the next slides. 10-year Treasury yield rose further and topped 4.586% Thursday as the Q3 US GDP growth was revised up from 2.8% to 3.1%, and the number of the weekly jobless claims decreased last week. Now investors are waiting for the personal consumption expenditures data, scheduled to be released at 8:30 a.m. Friday. The Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell delivered remarks after the Federal Open Market Committee meeting on Wednesday, saying, quote, "At today's meeting, the committee decided to lower the target range for the federal funds rate by a quarter percentage point to 4.25% to 4.5%. In a summary of economic projections, committee participants generally expect GDP growth to remain solid, with the median projection of about 2% over the next few years. In the labor market, conditions remain solid. The median projection for the unemployment rate in the SEP is 4.2% at the end of this year and 4.3% over the next few years. Inflation has eased significantly over the past 2 years, but remains somewhat elevated relative to a 2% longer-run goal. The median projection in the SEP for total PCE inflation is 2.4% this year and 2.5% next year. When it comes to the monetary policy, he added, quote, "The median participant projects that the appropriate level of the federal funds rate will be 3.9% at the end of next year. These median projections are somewhat higher than in September." And he explained why the median projections are somewhat higher than in September, quote, "Inflation is higher this year. It's also higher in the forecast next year. I'd also point out that we are closer to the neutral rate, which is another reason to be cautious about further moves." He also talked about the reverse repo rate, quote, "On a technical note, we lowered the offering rate on our overnight reverse repo facility to align it with the bottom of the target range for the federal funds rate," unquote. For the US stocks, S&P 500 fell 0.09%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average added 0.04%, snapping its 10-day losing streak. The tech-heavy Nasdaq lost 0.1%. Big tech stocks performed well on Thursday. Shares of Nvidia rose 1.37% and Amazon stock added 1.26%. Most of the US chip stocks fell on Thursday as shares of Micron Technology tumbled above 16% after the company reported weaker than expected guidance for the current quarter revenue. Micron Technology reported its earnings on Wednesday after the bell. Revenue for the previous quarter was $8.7 billion, up 84% from a year ago, in line with expectations. Adjusted EPS was $1.79, up from 95 cents, earning per loss higher than expectations. When it comes to the guidance for the current quarter revenue, the company expected $7.9 billion, much lower than market forecasts and even below the previous quarter's revenue. Micron Technology President and CEO Sanjay Mehrotra talked about the guidance quote, "We had previously shared the expectation that customer inventory reductions in the consumer-oriented segments and seasonality would impact fiscal Q2 bit shipments. We are now seeing a more pronounced impact of customer inventory reductions. As a result, our fiscal Q2 bit shipment outlook is weaker than we previously expected. We expect this adjustment period to be relatively brief and anticipate customer inventories reaching healthier levels by spring, enabling stronger bit shipments in the second half of fiscal and calendar 2025. We are on track to achieve our HBM target and also deliver substantial record in Micron revenue, significantly improved profitability, and positive free cash flow in fiscal 2025." Unquote. He also added, quote, "The HBM market will exhibit robust growth over the next few years. In 2028, we expect the HBM TAM to grow 4 times from the $16 billion level in 2024 and to exceed $100 billion by 2030, unquote. Okay, this is the end of today's news. I hope Santa Claus comes to all of us this year.